welcome everybody to Flow webinar series in using digitization for a competitive advantage. Actually, today is the session number 3 in our webinar series, and this one focused on reduce manual workloads and streamline material and transportation planning processes. So we are very glad to see many people registered, and as far as I can see, many of you already have joined the webinar on time. So I guess we are all ready to start. Let me make a quick introduction round so you would know better who would accompany you in the coming 30 minutes. My name is Nhung Nguyen, responsible for product marketing in Flow software and being your host today. I'm glad to be with my two colleagues who have profound knowledge and hands-on experience in the transportation planning area. So in the next, let's say 29 minutes, our speaker will offer a potential solutions for the current pressing issue of workforce productivity. They will demonstrate best practices from global planning projects, showcasing how to diminish reliance on repetitive tasks and manual processes in integrating material and transportation planning processes. So let's have now a look at the current workforce situation with our first speaker, Tobias. So I hand it over to Tobias.
Good day, everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to set the scene about the possibilities of automation in the logistics context and the potential of automation in the back office tasks. To set the scene, I will refer to 3 studies that kind of are a good entry point for the topic. First of all, I would start with a study published by McKinsey called Harnessing Automation for a Future That Works, which came from 2017. And it looked at the possibilities to automate and revealed basically that 5% of occupations are candidates for full automation at the technologies which were available back at that time. However, and that's kind of the more significant revelation, that almost every occupation holds the potential for partial automation. And that means, in aggregate, that approximately half of all activities in the world's workforce could be automated. Now, that was 2017. If we fast forward today, of course, we have also new possibilities which we have been learning about in the last years, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So the potential to automate has only expanded. And I'm referring here to a few comments from a senior director of Gartner supply chain practice, Thomas Pocock, who in a study delved a little bit into the problem space. And he said, there is legitimate excitement today around new technologies that hold out the promise of vastly enhanced organizational productivity. Supply chain leaders must remember that these new technologies require the partnership of an engaged and productive workforce for these gains to be realized. And basically, as an opener to his study, they looked at a global labor market survey in the year 2023. And he said, like, unfortunately, the data tells a discouraging story on this front. And there are 2 main facts or 3 main facts, basically, that they have highlighted in the study. First of all, it revealed that only 25% of the supply chain workforce is fully engaged. They looked at the turnover rate over time, and after the pandemic, so basically the turnover rate in supply chain employees has been 33% higher than pre-pandemic. And when asked whether they would go above and beyond, the number of supply chain workforce who are responding yes is basically only 16%. And if we look at potentially quite significant technologies being introduced, anyways, kind of this will be challenging to introduce these kind of productivity enhancement measures. And if you look at this environment, really, you need to be considering that there are potentially elevated levels of mistrust, and that you could potentially also face change fatigue. So it's clear there needs to be a new strategy to make these integrations work for both sides. And now, if we look at the intent of companies, how many companies are looking forward to invest in supply chain automation? There is 6 in 10 companies respond that they want to invest in digital technology to bolster their supply chain processes, data synthesis, and analysis capabilities. So basically, this indicates that companies are planning to accelerate their spending on digital technology. So I think if we look at this from a bird's eye perspective, then we need to see, on the one hand side, there's huge potential to improve productivity. On the other hand side, it's clear, no, you need to kind of take the workforce with you and manage the transformation process. And I think if you do so, the end outcome could be also positive, because giving people the tools to be more productive could also help increase the engagement from the workforce. So I'm passing on to Anastasia for the next slide.
Thank you, Tobias, for this introduction into the topic of productivity. I'm happy to take over to give a few examples from my past experience at Workflow and what technologies we are also leveraging to make our environment more productive, more exciting to work, and make it also more automated. So just to give a bit more background context, at Workflow Management, we work a lot with the ITMS, which is the Integrated Transportation Management System. And it's handling all kinds of services for a customer, ranging from strategic, tactical, and operational optimization, route implementation, operational processes, such as handling orders for our customers, scheduling their trucks, but also freight cost management topics such as claim handling and reporting services. And yes, even though we are already in 2024, I don't think we can successfully say that everything is perfectly automated already, and there's no manual tasks or steps that we do in our day-to-day work. So we'll just talk about a few examples of the challenges we're facing and how we also already managed to come closer to automation and increasing productivity. So as you can imagine, every day we're receiving big amounts of data that we have to input into the right formats and systems to be able to manage the services for our customers, for example, in the ITMS. So the data that we're receiving can range from supplier data, warehouse data, carrier information, and can include contact information, addresses, article and packaging information, and also cost structures. To give a more relatable example, in order to be able to price those transports that we're managing for our customers, there are different rate structures that we are receiving and have to implement into the system. For example, the rates from carriers can have different structures, such as pallet-based rates, shipment-based rates. There's different surcharges also when speaking about especially air freight or sea freight transports. But also, you have to keep in mind that there's no perfect plug-and-play solution and a standardized format for every carrier and every customer. Since we're also working with customers from different industries, such as pharmaceutical and healthcare customers, consumer goods customers, and also automotive industries. And each and every one of them holds different standards. Of course, we established to have an EDI connection whenever possible to facilitate the exchange of data flows between all the parties. However, not every customer has the perfect database that we can connect to, and also not every project can have the luxury of an EDI connection. just due to the project size, duration, or also budget. So some of our customers, we are, for example, performing the service of like invoice verification approval, and it means we have to validate all the received invoices from the carriers, and are processing the payment and checking deviations with their respective stakeholders. So in these cases, we developed an artificial intelligence solution where, for example, the tool is able to read PDF invoices and is automatically able to compare and validate those against the calculated value from our TMS. So it means that our employees, for example, don't have to manually open up each and every invoice and compare that and approve, but this is automatically done by the tool. So this is adding a lot of value for our customers, and our employees are only handling the exceptional cases and deviations. So speaking about having an engaged workforce, earlier, I think this plays into the direction of having interesting and valuable tasks rather than like really repetitive work. Quite recently, we also implemented some tools with, for example, local platforms that allow teams to collect master data from different sources. For example, for implementing new routes in the system. In order to be able to optimize the networks or also being able to manage transport orders, we work with the routes that we implement that keep, how to describe like all the details, such as pickup and delivery locations, times, days, the carrier, and cost information in one place. So with this route alignment tool, we're able to request data from various stakeholders who can directly enter that into the portal. That portal can also validate the correctness of the entries and also automatically send out reminders for completion. So that is also a big efficiency gain for us, since it also gets rid of a lot of emails back and forth for reminding people to insert information and so on. And we're currently also working on rolling this out to many other use cases for master data collection, but also to different change request tools and tracking tools. Maybe also to step away from master data, I would like to give another example out of more operational teams, where we work with the customer demands and process these into shipments that we're able to assign to a carrier for the scheduling. These customer demands are typically not optimized for transport ordering. So that's where our teams are also stepping in to provide additional value. Let's look at an example when a supplier is called off with material to deliver on Tuesday and Thursday. And these are, when converted into actual loads or trucks, only semi-full. So it's not the cost optimal way to transport that. And we would propose to consolidate these shipments on a Tuesday, for example. To be able to handle this on a large scale for hundreds or thousands of shipments daily, we have a software solution that is called Forflow Vista. And it's able to run that optimization daily through the demands and suggest that. There's a small issue connected with that because it means that we cannot just implement that always, but we have to check with the suppliers if they have the material ready 2 days before we actually planned to pick it up. Or we also have to make sure that our customers reflect that in their planning systems, because preponing material may also lead to the incorrect tracking of supplier delivery performances. So there's still room for improvement, I would say, to eliminate that alignment by having transport optimized demands. And my colleague Tobias would tell us more about that.
Thanks a lot. That's a really good introduction for the topic. I would propose to look at a very concrete process and that's the material planning and the ordering of materials. And I'll start kind of with sketching the traditional approach to this, where it's governed by the materials requirement planning, or often referred to as MRP process. This process basically calculates within your ERP system based on a few parameters, so minimum stock level, lot sizes, minimum order quantities, lead times, and maximum inventory levels. And basically this process, part of the material planning, and it's often kind of completely independent of anything which happens afterwards. So we would call this a siloed process. And to illustrate this, the decision of material requirements planning is typically independent and without consideration of, for example, transport routes and capacities, and as mentioned from Anastasia, the possibility of consolidation. And kind of we looked at some organizations and checked out, hey, how did they decide when they were using this in a silo, and how would the optimal pattern be looking like if we optimize kind of the thing end to end, just not only the material call-offs, but also the additional transports which are coming afterwards. And we found out basically that by integrating the transport constraints and order frequency, that there's still potentials, even in kind of very well-run supply chains. You can still kind of increase your utilization of your transport capacities. You do realize productivity gains in the planning of the organization or the planning organization. And you have possibilities to save transport costs and subsequently also kind of improve your carbon footprint. And one thing about this specific topic, which is I think is very attractive, is that here you optimize at the very start, the moment that you place the order. So you do not need to later on intervene into the process and have maybe multiple manual interactions on the one hand side. And the other one is that if you're looking at something like that as an improvement, you basically can zoom into the improvement potential very early on and really calculate whether this is worth going for or not based on your historical data. So I would take the chance now to guide you through a few of our software solutions just from a high level perspective that we are offering, which come in play when people are looking into automating their supply chain and some of their processes. First of all, here at the top, we have the 4Flow ITMS. It's a transport management system, and we call it ITMS because it's an integrated transport management system. So what do we integrate into it? It's built for supply chains that benefit from planning the transport and so from really looking at different time horizons, strategically, tactically, and operationally, and by already anticipating the needs for your supply chain and planning for those. Yeah. And this is typically the case, of course, for networks that are changing frequently. There you have the biggest advantage by adjusting your supply chains with planning activity. And then the second solution which I want to refer to is 4Flow Toro. This is really a solution which starts with my last case that I illustrated, where you say, like, I want to bridge the gap between material management and transport planning. At the earliest point, like really looking at the topic holistically, 4Flow is generating optimized material purchase requirements and saves operating costs and eventually CO2, and can bring benefits even in very efficiently managed supply chains. So 4Flow Toro does not only kind of improve the outcome, but also is supporting your planning workforce and increases the productivity of the supply chain planners and allows them really to focus on the supply chain or material exceptions. And it's a solution that can be easily integrated with all relevant ERP systems.
Yeah, so, and also as a company that is quite curious with experimenting with new technologies, where, as mentioned before, leveraging with like machine learning tools and AI to automate their processes whenever there's an opportunity for that. So also in the area of forecasting, to give an example, demand forecasting, we already developed some tools that are quite advanced at calculating like optimized stocks and predicting stock out levels when talking about inventory optimizations. And then EDI would be, for example, for receiving carrier milestones, or leveraging order assignment via EDI to just eliminate any kind of other system or email communication. So yeah, I think that would be the way to go when talking about EDI.
So thank you for the great sharing, Anastasia and Toby. Now it's time for our Q&A section. We could have roughly 9 minutes for this part. So please feel free to take time and hand in your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer as many questions as possible from your side. And why give you some time to think and type the questions? We would like also to thank you everyone for the time today, and would like to encourage you also to contact our speakers, Anastasia, our Global Planning Manager from ForFlow Management, and Tobias, our Director Software Sales from our ForFlow Software. And of course, you can also use the QR code, use your camera to scan it, and get in touch with us if you would like to discuss any specific use case of your business. It could also be very good if you can spend 30 seconds of your time to take part in a short survey, which we will put shortly in our chat box to let us know how you like the session today and which topic you would like to hear further in the future. This could be very helpful for us to improve the quality of our webinar in the coming time. So I think now we are ready to go for the Q&A session, and some questions already fly in. I already have the first one here. And what are the main challenges that you met during your projects to move from manual process and planning to automated planning? Yeah, Anastasia or Toby, who would like to answer this question?
Yeah, I'll take it. So I think overall, automation projects do not need to be rocket science. No, it can be really typically. I think there are elements which you need to make sure that you are hitting on. Yeah, so it's kind of, you need to have diligent project work. You need to align professionally within your organization. And of course, you need to find out what data do you have available and how consistent is the data that you're using. There's an aspect which you need to keep in mind. No, once you start to automate, basically you need to be able to rely on the data that is being used. So eventually that could mean that you have a higher data quality requirement once you use the data automatically than before that. So that's something you need to keep in mind, I guess, and ensure that your organization adheres to it and that you bring this to the table. And then I think another element which needs to be anticipated basically is also that as long as people are doing it, kind of the responsibility lies with the people. So if you have elements of the process which are automated, then you might need to have additional processes to govern this. So for example, in the area of material, where materials are involved, then it's also important that you consider the life cycle of the products. So if there are any changes to the product, if there's new product introduction or an end of life of product, you need to have specific processes for that. And then, if you have kind of stakeholders which are spread across an organization, you need to find a format that you integrate the different key users or the different knowledge people, so that you are you're sure basically that the change in your process is also covering all the aspects from the different stakeholders which are later on involved. And you have, of course, also to take them on the journey, and to keep them on the journey. You also need to ensure that once you have successes, that you share them, so that people are giving visibility to the change, and that people are also wanting to buy in and continue working on these topics.
Thanks, Toby. I hope Toby has well answered the question. And there comes another question related to the topic AI. Where do you see the most relevant use case for AI in supply chain?
Yeah, I can happily take that one.
Yes, please.
I would say any type of forecasting, since AI can greatly support us nowadays in that area. So as I was speaking earlier on inventory optimization, it's quite easy nowadays to predict the optimal stock levels and help companies overall with decreasing their production costs. Because the tool is able to hold in a lot of knowledge from the past, and these algorithms can predict and calculate parameters, and you can also play around and simulate things there quite easily and efficiently. So I think that would be quite interesting. Not necessarily limited to supply chains. I would also say communication. Because I don't necessarily see a limit where AI cannot help us, for example, in back office tasks like scheduling calls, writing agendas, summarizing text, putting action points together. So AI can really benefit in many areas. So I'm looking forward to explore that in the near future as well.
Yes, definitely, Anastasia. I'm also looking forward to see how AI would change our professional life in the future. Yeah, so we still have 2 minutes left. So I would say let's answer one more questions, and the rest of the question we would leave it for later. Our speakers will reach directly to you and answer the questions via email. So the last question I pick up here is regarding to automation. When does automation make sense from your experience? How can I make sure that it is worth to go through such a change?
There's a rule of thumb for in-warehouse automation, which I vaguely remember. That's basically if you're doing something 1,000 times a day, it's worth looking at it, whether you can automate it. If you're talking about back office activities, basically, I would also kind of use a metric where I say, how often is it done, and how much time do I save potentially? And then it's up to your company's individual assessment criteria based on the expected effort to implement that, to decide whether you want to do this automation or not. However, I think it's good as an organization to maybe not go for the biggest fish first, but to also exercise a little bit the muscle of being able to manage such projects. And this is kind of something which I would warmly recommend, that you are also kind of first exercising it and then successively work yourself upwards once you see that the organization is kind of getting familiarized with managing these kind of processes and projects.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Toby. And it's perfectly in time for the end of our webinar. So as said, for the rest of the questions, we would like to reach directly to you to give the answer by email. I would spend the last second to inform you that tomorrow there will be a next webinar session in regard to network design within our webinar series. So for anyone that haven't registered yet, please feel free to use the QR code. We look forward to seeing you there and also in our coming webinars. Thanks a lot, everyone, for the time, especially to our speakers for very interesting insight and sharing today. see you next time. Thank you.